Good afternoon. I wanted to thank everybody for jumping on the webinar today. Growing your lawn and landscape business in today's day and age can be challenging, to say the very least. Best marketing practices have changed quite a bit in the last several years. We're going to cover a variety of topics today, and by the end of the call, you should all have a better understanding on how doing the right things in March will have a big impact on how successful you are the rest of the year. Today, we have two guest speakers with us, and they're both leaders in the lawn and landscape industry. Tom Kelly and Jonathan Potashnik. Tom Kelly has been in the lawn care industry since he graduated from Syracuse University back in the early 90s. He co-founded the largest privately held lawn care company in the Northeast, servicing over 20,000 clients at its peak. Tom, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's been going on with you the last couple of years?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thanks, Dick. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. As Dick said, I've been in the lawn care business for more than 20 years. The last couple of years have brought me to the organic industry, and I am the founder, and I now run a company called Be Safe Lawns. And what we do is we focus on helping lawn and landscape companies introduce an organic program into their business. And one of the main parts of dealing with that is helping them grow their business. And it's always a challenge. It's probably one of the biggest challenges that our applicators face, and we spend a ton of time on it. So the last couple of years, that's what we've been working on, trying to help lawn and landscape professionals introduce a more organic method into their business, and constantly working on marketing. It's something we're always working on every single day.
Great, thanks, Tom. We also have Jonathan Potashnik here with us. He started, like many of you on the call today, a guy with a truck, a mower, and a dream. Only Jonathan was 14 years old when he started his first mowing company, and I guess he wasn't old enough to own that first truck yet. He went on to major in computer information systems in college, founded several companies after graduation, including a lawn care company that currently services thousands of clients north of Dallas. Jonathan, there's a big difference between programming and lawn care. Can you give us a quick rundown on what you've been doing the last few years and how the synergy between lawn care and computer programming came about?
Sure. Hey, Dick, thanks for hosting this and doing this. And hey, Tom, it's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, good talking to you too, Jonathan.
Yeah. So we basically, how the whole thing happened is I have been in technology for going back into the latter part of the 90s, and I've really never got out of it. I've been in it the whole time, and I co-founded my first software company with my current business partner in Service Autopilot back in 2001. And over the years, we've built a lot of systems for other companies. For example, in 2008, that was one of the last big systems we built. It was in the health insurance industry, managing private medical patient data. And it just so happened that along the way, I got out of the lawn care business as a high school kid. I got out when I was a freshman in college, but got back in it and in 2005, and to this day own a company in North Texas, kind of north of Dallas, that we are a full-service company: lawn care, pest control, maintenance, the whole deal. And so what happened is I also owned a commercial cleaning company at the same time, and I was looking around trying to find technology that could get my companies to the size that I wanted to take them, my service companies, specifically my lawn care company. And there was a lot of stuff in the marketplace, but since I really understood technology and could guess at where those solutions were going, I just couldn't find anything that would meet the needs, and we looked everywhere. So John, who's my business partner in Service Autopilot, we basically thought there's a huge market opportunity here, and we talked about it for a couple years, and then we finally did it. So really that's how we ended up in it, and it was all because we just saw a need, and I really desperately needed something that could handle the transactional volume I needed to handle in my business, and that I thought could manage a business the size I wanted to build. So that's how it came to be.
Great, I appreciate that. Hey, Jonathan, Tom's going to pass the screen over to you now.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
You want to take hold of that?
Yeah, I'm waiting on it. I've got it. Okay, I clicked it.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about organization and why that's so important in marketing, in lawn care marketing?
Okay. So my take on this, having had a lot of experience both running service companies and then too with Service Autopilot, and interestingly, I think this is true for all businesses, and at this point in my, I guess you'd say, career, I'm solely focused on Service Autopilot in my lawn care company, which I think is just a really important thing for us as business owners. It's to become extremely focused. I used to, by the beginning of 2009, I owned 4 companies, and I've in differing industries, and I see the value in focus. And so it sort of leads into what you're asking in that, for me in my own life, I want to be in and do so many different things, but I really have to force myself to focus. And I think as business owners, we have to do the same. So I'm at this point where I really predominantly focus just on this industry. And so in our businesses, we really have to focus really, really closely on our business, and within our business, focus very closely, I believe, on a certain type of perfect clientele and a perfect service offering that we really understand and that we can execute well. And so part of being focused then is about monitoring and measuring certain things and really paying attention to certain things. So on my screen, I have up a fake demo Service Autopilot account just so I can point out some things, not so much to point them out because of Service Autopilot or to show off Service Autopilot, but really to point out some things to really think about that I've come to believe and learn over the years. And so I really think it breaks down to about 3 things that we really need to be watching, measuring, and paying attention to. And I think the first one maybe is a little bit obvious, and that is we're building these teams, and our teams are paying attention to what we're doing. And so if we personally are completely scattered, if we're not living from a schedule at some level, if we don't represent having any form of organization in our life, then our team sees that, and it's hard to expect the team to have any organization in terms of how they operate within your business. If you're not an organized person, then they're not. How can you expect them to keep organized and be most efficient in the business? So I think it sort of starts with us being the leaders of our business and the representation to our team. And so one of the things, it's not yet, I'm going to talk about some metrics here in a second, but it's not really a metric that you're watching. It's what you're doing. It's the things that you're watching. So, for example, I've got up just a real simple home screen for Service Autopilot here where I can track my time for the day, but really more important than that is, and this isn't so much, again, to show off Service Autopilot, it's to make a point that I can have my full calendar. So I really believe in living off a calendar. Every phone call I have is pre-scheduled. Everything I do is pre-scheduled. When I'm going to check my email, I do it at a specific time every single night. And I think that that's really critical, and the only way you can do that is to have a few tools that allow you to do it. You've got to have something where you can manage your day, manage your calendar, track your commitments, track your phone calls, keep up with your to-dos, have things scheduled on the calendar. And so I think it starts there, and that's the first thing. It's not a metric, but it is a way to keep up with what you've got to do. And then the second thing is, it really does, this is March. I mean, the entire purpose of this month is to sell. I mean, that is what we are supposed to be focused on right now. This month in April, or in most markets, are our best time of the year to sell the highest percentage of work at hopefully the highest conversion rate. And so I think then we get into the second thing is that we have to really be working on making our marketing work and then tracking if it's working. So just as an example, kind of to give you an idea of maybe how you think about this, like for example, something that I really care about, so I'm going to a screenshot here. I did a couple screenshots real quick. What I care about is how many leads are we driving every month? How many leads are we driving every week? And then how many are we converting? And then what's that conversion percentage? But more than that, if we just know that we brought in 500 leads for the month, that doesn't really tell us anything. We really need to know, okay, what's working? Are we getting leads from people seeing our trucks? Are we getting leads from the Google AdWords campaigns that we're running? Where are these leads coming in from? And so I really firmly believe that you need to be watching at a little bit deeper level. And so as an example here, I have an example on the screen that comes out of Service Autopilot. For example, I can tell that there were 56 referrals in the month of January, or excuse me, in the month of March. There are 34 that have converted into clients, and they're converting at a 60% conversion rate. Now, that kind of stuff is really important, because if you, from month to month, see, or this month compared to last month, see that something's not working or something stopped working, you can immediately hop on it. And you can immediately deal with it. And watching your conversion percentages right now is really important. And everyone has a limited amount of money they can spend on marketing. So watching what's working, the marketing activities that you're doing that are working. If one's not working, you stop and you reallocate the money. So this is the month of execution. It's not the month of creating a new plan and putting new procedures in place. It's the month of executing. And so we're executing and we're making little adjustments based on the plan that we've already put together. And so that's why these metrics are just critical. You've got to be able to react fast. You've got to be able to say, this isn't working. We're shifting the money. We're shifting the team. Our conversion percentage is down from last year. What are we doing different? Are we not answering the phone as fast? Do we not have enough people staffed to answer the phone? What's the scenario? So I really believe in watching these types of metrics. And I really think you need a lot of these metrics in your business. You need to know how many leads are coming in, how many clients are converting, how many new clients you've sold this month of this year versus last year. And you've got to have statistics to do this. And then I would say the third thing here in terms of really being on top of your business is it's operational. So now it's the month of executing, it's the month of selling, but we can sell all day long, and if we disappoint the clients that we've brought in the door, then they're going to go out and they're not going to refer us, and they're going to spread bad words. They're going to say bad things about us. They're going to give us bad reviews on Yelp and in Google. And so operationally, this is the third area that you've got to execute this month. It's the easiest time of the year to drop the ball and make people unhappy because we have all this, hopefully, all of these leads coming in. And if we're selling too much and can't execute, we can really make ourselves look bad and ruin our long-term reputation. So the third set of metrics that I believe in would be watching what's going on. So this is just one example. So if you're in the lawn care business, and you're doing 5 rounds a year or 6 rounds a year or whatever number of rounds you're doing per year, where are you at? For example, if you're in the middle of round 1 and you've got 1,000 clients to take care of, where are we at? Have we done 500? Have we done 300? How many do we have to go? How much money have we generated so far? When we finish this round, how much more money are we going to generate? Can we, in this example, you can zoom in and you can see exactly what you've got left to do. And so again, the point is not about Service Autopilot. The point is about, do you have this kind of stuff in your business? And if not, how can you put it together, or where can you get it from so that you can be watching it right now? Dick, did I keep on task with your answer there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, it actually ties really into what Tom was just going to talk about. And I work directly with Tom, and I've heard him say the words plan, implement, and adjust over and over and over. And it sounds like you guys have the same views on that, because you were talking about if something's working, you have to tweak it to make up for it. So Tom, why don't you take control of the screen and go into what you were just about to talk about.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking my language big time, Jonathan. That's for all the people who are on the call today. A lot of them are Be Safe applicators, and they hear me say the same thing over and over and over again: analyze, plan, implement, adjust. And those are things that you've absolutely got to be working on all the time. And now isn't the time to analyze. Now isn't the time to plan. Now is the time to implement. It's absolutely critical that you're the one, or whether it's you or you're responsible for a team to actually do the implementation. You have to stay on it, and you have to stop and ask yourself at least a couple times throughout the course of the day. You have to stop and you say, is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to my sales goal? And if the answer to that question is no, you have to change what you're doing to get closer to your sales goal. You have to be hyper-focused on making sure you hit those goals. And part of being able to do that is working off of a plan. And Jonathan, when you were talking about how March and April are the key months in being able to make those sales, I mean, it's absolutely positively true. Everything that you do has to revolve around making those sales. So what I thought I'd bring up here, and perhaps, Jonathan, maybe you and I can go back and forth a little bit on some of these actual source codes here. It was easy for me,
Okay.
much the same way you brought up Service Autopilot, it's easy for me to bring up a Be-Safe sales plan. So when we write a plan, what we do is, in this particular one, it's a company starting from 0 sales and from 0 customers. What we wanted to do was get to about 450 customers. So what we did was we built a sales planner to make 482 sales, knowing that we'd take a certain amount of cancels, and we kind of predetermined what our revenue per customer would be. We built in some of our optional services here to come up with a gross sales. But in order to actually to get to that revenue, we had to put together a campaign that's going to get us there. And I love the way you brought up some of those screens in Service Autopilot, because metrics are so incredibly important, not necessarily to what you're doing right now, but when you write this plan again next year, and you should always have your plan, your budget written, your sales plan done in the off season. You need to make sure that that you're ready to go in January. So this plan was written, in December to be able to be implemented January, February, March, and April. So when you had all of those lead sources up and were drilling down, I think you call them closing conversion percents. I call them closing percents. Historical data is literally the most important key indicator of any plan. So when you write your plan for next year, you're going to look back at what happened this year. And after a while, any lawn care or even landscaping marketing plan becomes almost a math equation. There's not a huge amount of creativity that goes into it after a while, because you can count on certain things happening year after year after year. So what I thought we'd do right now is take a look at this particular sales planner and look at some of the sources that we're going to try to get sales from, and then literally drill it down to the best way to actually implement it. And Jonathan, I'd love to get your opinion on a couple of these sources. And literally, this is a legit plan that I pulled up. It's not something I put together specifically for today's webinar. A lot of it's based on historical data that we've learned from over the years, especially when you talk about closing percents. But so I'm just going to run through a couple of these, and Jonathan, I'll ask your opinion on some of them too, because I think a lot of the audience, this is what it's all about. You really need to execute it, and some of the advice that we can give them on how to execute some of these lead sources is really important. So I'll start with referral. Referral is really one of the most important lead sources that you can ever build into your plan. And sometimes people make a mistake of just assuming that referrals will happen. And in my opinion, it's absolutely critical that you push referral sales all the time with every single thing you do. Back at Lawn Dog, when we would implement our referral program, every single bit of information that ever left our building or ever left the branch, whether it was paper or electronic, email, or anything, had some sort of reference to the referral program. So first of all, you have to start with an incentive. You have to want to give, you have to give people a reason to want to give you referrals. So some companies, will do, $50. Some companies will do a free application or a free mowing, something like that. There has to be a reason for people to want to do it, but it has to be implemented. You can't just assume it's going to happen. Jonathan, you must deal with referrals a lot. Do you have any thoughts on the referral sale?
I have a lot. We could probably talk about this for the rest of the time. Right. But referrals for me is not the most. So I'm speaking from experience here and data that I know in my own business. So when I say my own business, I'm referring to the lawn care company. For us, referrals is our highest conversion, has our highest conversion rate or closing percentage, to use your words. For us, it runs in the low 90% range year after year. So there is nothing in our business with a higher conversion rate than a referral. And we do actually, in some of our referrals, we do encounter some expense so they're not free to us. Like a lot of people will tout that a referral is free, but not for us, because for every referral, we're sending out a thank you card and a gift card to a local restaurant to the person that gave the referral. So I really believe in referrals. It's not our #1 lead source, but it's our best conversion. And so we really actively try to get our clients or encourage our clients when they make the referral to really, we give them something. We give them gifts. We say thank you. We go out of our way because we're encouraging behavior. We're trying to train behavior. We want them to give us another referral. So this is one, if I was picking 3 top things that I was doing in starting over today, referrals would be one that I'd focus on. And the reason I said we could talk about it, Tom, for a long time is we've actually built an entire strategy around referrals where what we do is we give our clients a gift card to give to their friends. And so that's why referrals aren't completely free to us. Our clients will we give our client a free gift card, like you would think of going to the store and buying a gift card to Best Buy. They give that gift card to their friends, and then those friends a lot of times will hang it on their fridge because it's got value to it and they won't throw it out. And someday down the road, they'll redeem that gift card with our company when they need service. We have an opportunity to show off what we're able to do and the level of our customer service, and they become a client. So there's this huge strategy we've built around it. So I think it's got to be one of the top 3 things that a company focuses on when they're building out the business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, but one important thing that you said there is it requires strategy. And you always will take referral leads and referral sales just by doing what you do. But if you do implement some sort of strategy where you can put together a plan and a program and really make it happen, I'm in total agreement. You will make a lot of sales by pushing that referral. Now, a couple things here. A bunch of guys are typing questions, and I wanted to remind you that if you do have any questions, feel free to type them into the console up on your screen. But because we've got a ton of lead sources here, I think we probably could do a full 60 minutes on these sources only, and I don't think we want to do that right now. So a couple of people have asked about some of the sources here, and if there's one thing or one source or other source that any of you want us to talk about, go ahead and type them in. But more than a couple of people have asked about direct mail. So I'm going to speak to direct mail for a couple of minutes because it really does have a place in your marketing plan. And I think when we talk about the most successful or the source that will drive the most sales, direct mail can do that for you, but you have to be careful with it because it can get very expensive, and you're kind of taking a risk with doing it. It wasn't that long ago where many lawn care service companies, and I'm talking mostly fertilization and some of the big companies, TruGreen and Scotts, their main source of sales came from direct mail. After telemarketing was kind of let go however many years ago, it seems like forever now. When they had to switch away from telemarketing to direct mail, they just pumped millions and millions of dollars into direct mail, and it's not always the most cost-efficient means to make sales, but there is absolutely a place for it. And somebody was asking about statistics in regards to direct mail. So let me throw a couple things out there and see what you guys think. Direct mail, you can typically expect a less than 1% response rate. So when you send out a direct mail piece, 10,000, 100,000, or even, in some of the bigger companies' case, 1 million pieces. I remember one year at Lawn Dog, we sent out 500,000 direct mail pieces, and we got a spring nor'easter. We got a snowstorm that wasn't forecasted, and it literally, it was devastating. It was a lot of money to put into direct mail. So that's what I'm talking about in regards to the risk. But you should only expect about a 1% return from it. And basically what you're doing is you're generating estimates. You should be able to close those estimates at a pretty high rate. And I think in this particular plan, we've got them in at 62%. So if we were going to generate 200 direct mail leads, we're going to expect 124 sales from that. And that's that's a fairly high amount as a percent to what we're doing from this entire plan. But it's going to cost a few bucks to do that. So, Jonathan, have you had any experience with direct mail, or what are your feelings on that in today's day and age?
No, I think there's a move away from direct mail because the web is so incredibly, it can be so successful for so many companies, and it's perceived to be near free, though it's not really. And so I see direct mail as this awesome opportunity. I still love direct mail, but you nailed it. You nailed it on several fronts. There's a lot of guys that don't even get a 1% return. A quick example, you got to be very aware of your market. So, for example, if you're mailing, let's use residential, if you're mailing to a street where 2 out of every 10 people on that street are even a potential buyer of the service you're selling, you're mailing out an awful lot of marketing pieces that have zero chance of getting a return. So only 2 out of 10 even have a chance of even having a person respond. So the very first question direct mail is, am I targeting exactly the right areas with the highest propensity to buy, the highest potential? And so if you don't, your returns could be 0.25%. They could be a disaster. You nailed it on the snow. I mean, if it's raining on the day the direct mail gets delivered, or it's overcast, kills returns. So there's all these variables in direct mail that will just kill you. You can mail the same piece to the same area, and you get a 2% return, and you mail it again 3 weeks later, and you get an 1/8% return. And why? It's hard to explain sometimes. So, but that doesn't mean you don't do it. I think the guys that do it are going to win in the long term. And so here's, Tom, here's how I look at direct mail. I think the web is it, and I spend a lot of money on the web, and a lot of guys are shocked when they come to find out what it takes to get good SEO rankings. It really does cost a lot of money, but it's the best money you can spend. But the best way to grow your company from a profit standpoint is with direct mail, and here's why. This is my opinion, of course, but my strategy, my belief is, you spend a whole lot of money to get yourself out there on the web so that people are coming to you. So I'm using a residential example again, and they're finding you, and you land on one street because you sell a client there, and then you land on another street a few miles away, and then you land on another street a few miles away from that. And if you only rely on the web, you have a business that's scattered across your service market. All the money's in density, and most guys hate residential, especially on the lawn mowing side, because they don't think there's any money in it, but there's a ton of money in it when you're dense. And so direct mail is how you get dense. You can't get dense just using the web. So the web drives where you land, and then when you land on that street, you go in to own that street, and you own it through direct mail. And that's why I'm a huge believer in direct mail. And the streets that the web drives you to, and you land on those streets that have a very low chance of many people in that street being a buyer of your service, you don't direct mail to that street. You know your market, and you only direct mail to the streets with the highest percentage of potential buyers, and the strategy is you go in to own those streets, and you do it with direct mail. And that's my belief, and that's why I so believe in direct mail. And yes, it is expensive. It is a more expensive sell, but it's the best sell because it leads to the most profit because you build density.
Yeah, and you know what? You're nailing it, man. Because and I can tell by the questions that are coming in here. Density is absolutely the most important part of profitability. And when it comes to lawn mowing, especially, if you can park that truck and do 6 lawns, I mean, that's as good as having, you know, a 50,000 square foot property, and plus it's going to be much more profitable. One of our branches in Portland at Lawn Dog years ago, we had 750 customers in just one zip code, and the guy would literally just go and park his truck and treat like 15 lawns at a time. They were tiny little, you know, 3,000 square foot lawns. I mean, but he'd do 40 lawns before 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was by far our most profitable route. But you know, the people are asking questions. It's interesting that the way you talked about SEO or trying to generate leads on the web, and how direct mail does have a place in your marketing campaign. But many people are asking about that United States Postal Service every door direct mail option, and they really do. They reduce the cost of it, but I'm not a huge fan of it because it doesn't allow you to target the way a good list does. So I think the importance of having a good list far outweighs, and it's going to cost a little bit more. But I think instead of just blanketing, you know, certain carrier routes, if you can really drill down where you want to make the sales and where you want to mail those pieces, that's about how you build density, and that's how you improve your profitability.
Yeah. Can I make a quick comment there, Tom?
Yeah, go for it.
I think this is really, what you brought up something I think is worth spending just an extra minute on, because it is the difference maker in profitable marketing strategy. And I'm going to give an exaggerated example, but if you use this mindset in thinking about marketing, and especially direct mail, it'll help. So I'll give you an example. Let's again use residential example. So you're out and you're doing estimates and you're meeting with clients, and this is again a very exaggerated example. And you have all these clients, and you go out there and you meet with them, and you walk away from the property and you think, you know, I like that guy. Every time I meet with him, he's a great guy. He's a great customer. And you just keep having these little experiences. And then one day you notice, and again, this is a silly example, but one day you notice, you know what? that guy that I just liked, he lives in about a $400,000 house, and he's got a BMW in the garage. And then a week later, you're like, oh, that guy, his house is about 400, and what do you know? He's got a BMW in the garage. And what you start to do is you start to see these trends, and you're like, you know, the guys I tend to like, they tend to be entrepreneurs, doctors, chiropractors, or some kind of professional. They tend to live in about a $400,000 house. What do you know? They tend to drive a BMW. And then you go to your mailing list company and you say, hey, I want to buy a list of everybody in my city that lives in a house between 350 and 450 that has a BMW, and so on and so forth. Now, that's a little more expensive list to buy. You're going to spend some money to buy that list. It's not free. But now you're mailing to a group of people that that the entire demographic probably has close to 100% chance of being your buyer, instead of mailing to a street where 2 out of every 10 people or 3 out of every 10 people might be your buyer. So what you've done is you've shifted some of your expense. If you're spending 28 cents a piece to get bulk mail and postcards out the door, now you've spent several pennies per name to buy the name, but you've immediately eliminated thousands of pieces that you would have sent that were a complete waste because you weren't mailing to a specific list. So exaggerated example, but that's the mindset in direct mail. How can you narrow the market you're focusing on and only get mail to the people that are your most likely buyers?
So it's almost as if you and I conspired about what to talk about during this, and I want everybody to know that we
Okay.
really did it. We're kind of doing this on the fly, but what's happening is what I think I kind of wanted to happen, is that we hit on specific things that literally make the biggest difference to implementing a marketing plan. So let's stay on this for a minute, because I think we need to actually take that exaggerated example that you gave with the BMW, but bring it down to a realistic point of view. So in my opinion, the list is huge. So yes, it is more inexpensive to do that every door direct mail. You can blanket, you know, as much as you want. Bulk mail is an option. But I've always been a firm believer in that if you can identify who your best prospects are, you're going to increase your closing percents drastically, or even your response. So if you're getting a 0.75% direct mail response, by increasing the validity or the quality of your list, you can get a 1% or even a higher than 1% response. And when you're talking about the numbers we're dealing with here in direct mail, that's a make or break, you know, 0.25%. So I think that the BMW example is perfect. But when you get right down to it, you want to deal with a couple of parameters in regards to your list. You want to only deal with single-family dwelling units. So if we're talking about residential here, you want to clean out the condos, you want to clean out the apartments, you want to get rid of the renters, you want to deal with single-family dwelling units only, and you want to use two things as your main cutoff with who you want to mail something to. It has to be home value and income level. Most list companies can actually take it beyond that, and you're absolutely right, man. You can get lists based on specific interests. You know, whether people like to play golf, whether, you know, what kind of car they drive, whether they have a vacation home, kids, everything. So in our case, if you're trying to sell organic lawn care, you know, whether or not somebody has children is a big deal, right? So if you can specify that in your list, you know, it's very important. But I think it's different in different parts of the country, but you want home value and income level to be the two main things. And I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, Jonathan, but I think it's important that we let these guys know that the list is a big deal.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna second that with one little comment, and that is that's not that expensive a list to buy. The common list is the one with the home value, the age, the demographic, a few demographic pieces of information, for example, the age of the person. That's a very common list to be able to get a hold of, so it's not a lot. It's not very expensive. When you go and add my exaggerated example of the BMW to it, that gets more expensive because now you're matching up multiple lists, and so it ups the price. So, Tom, the list you're talking about, it's a very affordable, doable list, and I'd add one little thing that I just learned over the years. Part of building your company is about building your company with clients you like, and clients that you like doing business with, that pay you on time, that you don't want to build your business around a company you hate because you're dealing with a bunch of people that drive you crazy. And years ago, I spent $200, had this huge wall map of my market made. This was back when I was still working the phones at CityTurf in the early days, hung this thing up on my wall, and every time I got off the phone, I put a push pin in the wall for a lead and put a different push pin in the wall for a sell. And the thing that happened was I realized that in my market, there was this one section in my entire market that was about a half a mile by a mile, and that's where all our best customers were. They would buy anything we wanted to sell. They weren't million-dollar homes. They were in $275,000 to $450,000 homes, and just that little activity clued us in where we wanted to be, and then we bought Tom a list exactly like what you just described. And we used that, but we bought that list in that area. And that, so add to what you just said, what kind of homes, how old are they? Now the next question is in what area? And you can get even more refined than just the zip code. And so that's how we've done exactly, Tom, what you described many, many times. It's a very successful, very affordable approach.
Yeah, I think your list, and actually this kind of segues to what we were going to talk about next. And it's funny because we could literally do 2 hours. We could do all day on these sources here, but we only want to spend about an hour with you guys, and you know, we can revisit it later. But what Jonathan was going to talk about next was the importance of that database and how that marketing universe and the flow of that information is so important with the way that you run your business and kind of track things. So, Jonathan, I don't know if you want to go into that. I can give you the screen back. I know you were going to show sort of that marketing universe and how that data is important.
Yeah. You could give me the screen, and I could show just a couple things really from a standpoint of maybe a few things to think about. And so this sort of leads into in my mind to this topic of speed. So it's not exactly what you asked, but it really gets into this speed issue. So if you think about where clients, do you see my screen? There we go. If you think about where clients are at, or our potential clients are at in the world today, everybody's multitasking, everybody's moving 100 miles an hour, everybody's got a to-do list that's way too busy, everybody gets easily frustrated. I mean, you know, from reading reviews on the web, most of the reviews a lot of times are negative because people are so busy. You know, when they are going to actually take the effort to do something, it's usually when they're not pleased with the outcome. And my point of that is that our selling advantage, I believe anymore, is on speed. And when I say our, I mean as an industry. And so the client wants fast, they want speed. If you don't answer your phone when the phone rings, you're at immediate, you're probably not going to win the business. They're not going to wait on you to return the voicemail. They're going to call 3 other people. If when they call you, they have to wait 2 days for you to come do an estimate, the first guy shows up with the estimate that they halfway trust, he's winning the business. Everything is becoming about speed. So in kind of showing a couple things maybe in terms of thinking about speed, the way I see it and the way I believe that the market is moving and what the market's demanding to give your potential client the dream come true experiences. When they call you, they want the phone answered. They want somebody to be able to answer their questions, that understands the industry, and they want a price right there in the moment. And they want their questions answered, and they want to feel comfort in what you can do for them. And so part of this is speed. And so you have to have some kind of a system, and then you to execute so that you can deliver speed. And then you also have to have a team that's trained for speed. You have to have a team that understands we answer the phone immediately, and a team that understands when we get the client on the phone, we don't say, well, somebody will get back to you in 5 minutes, or somebody will get back to you in an hour. The team is trained to get the sale on the phone. And it's a hard thing to do. It takes time to build the business to that point, and it takes time to get there. But the guys that get there are the guys that win. And so in terms of execution and speed, as an example, just maybe using a service autopilot example, understanding everything that's, so I'm in just a demo here. So if I go in and I go, let's just say I'll pick a customer out of the system here. So if part of speed and part of execution is understanding what's going on with the client, and that is about having a system, whatever your system is, that can give you everything you need to know in the moment on the phone so that you can close the deal. So I'm really focused on selling since it's March. So this is all based around selling. So for example, when the phone rings, you've got to know all the details about that client, all your past communication, when you're going to be out there next, all these little facts, and then you've got to be able to produce an estimate in the moment. And so Tom, I'm not sure if I really have to show too much here, but the point is I would do just a little side note trick that we've learned that works in helping conversion is we've come to conclude that if you can run in your advertisements that we will send you an estimate by email, which we do, but after we've spoken with you, because we can convert the vast majority of people that we speak with, this little tidbit of if you run in your advertisement, we will send you an estimate by email. People seem to really like that. They think that they're going to give you some information. You'll shoot them an email. They'll never have to talk to you, which they love. That's what they want. And so you have to be able to execute that fast. And so, for example, inside Service Autopilot, we have a whole system where you can go in and if you've got a residential client on the phone, you can pick residential. It'll load up every service in the system that you might sell a residential client. It'll take into account their square footage. It'll price out their work, and you can click send and blast them an estimate. The point of saying that is that's what people want. So how can you create that scenario in your business? Phone rings. You get them on the phone. You figure out what their address is using, well, there's some tools out there that'll do it now. You figure out what their square footage is. You put it into a system. It prices the work. You give them a quote over the phone. If they don't close in the moment, you immediately follow up with an estimate. If they don't close through the estimate, then you immediately follow up in 2 days with a phone call. So it's really about this speed. It's really about immediate execution. And if you want to massively up your closing percentage, you've got to be the guy that answers the phone, and you've got to be the guy that gives a quote today. You can't be the company that's going out to walk the property and do an estimate. You can't be the company that's going to walk out and evaluate all their needs and try to give them a price for 50 different services at one time. The goal is to sell them on one service today, make them your customer, you take them off the market, and then you can sell them all your other services tomorrow. But when you're selling them all the other services tomorrow, they're only evaluating you because now you're their vendor. They don't go out and reprice shop you for everything. So in the business, how can you think about creating this speed? Speed in marketing, speed in closing, speed in quoting. That's what people want. Tom, was that on point?
Yeah, no, and I'm kind of laughing at myself here because I know we've got a ton of guys, guys and girls, companies on this webinar today. There are, and I know there are more than a few BeSafe applicators, and I can almost see them rolling their eyes thinking that you and I, again, spent hours before we did this webinar to talk about what to drill into these guys' heads, because it's almost like I can hear you saying my words, and I just constantly drill it into our applicators' heads that they have to be able to react, and society has totally changed, and just sometimes you could say in almost just the last 5 years, but the last 10 years, where we used to generate an estimate, we'd go out, knock on the door. Sometimes we'd go in and we'd sit down at the table and have a cup of coffee, and the contractor would talk to the homeowner, and then, they'd think about the presentation. That is so not true anymore. It is all about speed. And one, I guess, a metaphor is that, say it applies to your profitability, because you can get away with a higher margin when you're able to react quickly. So one thing I always talk about is say your water heater breaks, and you need to call somebody to get your water heater fixed. One guy you call says, yeah, I can do it for this. I'll be out in 2 days to take a look at it, and it's going to be pretty inexpensive, but I'll be out there in a couple days. And another guy says, I can do it. I'm going to charge you an extra $250 to get out there today, and then I'm going to charge you what it's going to cost to fix it beyond that. 9 times out of 10, the person is going to pay the $250, right? I mean, when you want something, you want it now. And the way our society has changed is that people want things instantly. So I'm going to take the screen back from you, Jonathan, here, and show you how BeSafe has actually kind of adapted to that. I'm going to show you here. So there's things popping up on my screen. Hopefully everybody can see everything all right. So this is, again, an example. I'm using our company to prove a point to you guys, and we took it to the next level. We think that it's almost, it's not the one-step sale, meaning being able to react when somebody asks an estimate. I want to take that out completely. So I want customers to be able to do their own estimate. So we were able to implement the system into our business here where a homeowner actually enters their zip code, and it brings them to potential applicators in the area. And we want to give them a real-time estimate to be, oh, I'm just told that I've got white screen here.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I'm seeing the Green Industry Marketing 2013.
All right. I'm going to pass it back to you because for some reason it won't show. Technical difficulties, guys. Sorry. How's that?
I never got it back. There we go. Now I see your screen.
Okay, good. Sorry, guys. I had a feeling at least one thing was going to go wrong, and I don't know exactly what did go wrong. But so, anyways, let me just pick it up. I want to eliminate the process altogether. So what we did was we built into our website here. What you didn't see was there a place where a homeowner actually puts in their zip code to locate an applicator, and it brings them to the applicators in the area. And what they can do is actually click on get a real-time quote. And when they enter their address here, it's going to bring them directly to a satellite picture of their home. And with some technology that we used, that we built in using a company called My Lawn Quote, and again, our VSafe guys are rolling their eyes because I'm constantly pushing the system on them. It's a big deal. It helps that time period and that speed really get implemented. So, and I'm going to do this fast because.
Let me interrupt you 1 second and say one thing. A lot of clients, what we've observed, they have this to-do list. They come home at night after dinner or after a TV show. They want to go to a website and get an estimate. They want to give you information so you can call them tomorrow. The advantage of something like this, there's a huge percentage of homeowners or people that are doing this at night. Nobody's there to answer the phone. Now it's self-serve. They can get their price, get it off their to-do list. They can do it in the evening when we see so many people wanting to do it.
Yeah, huge. Huge. It's like having a salesperson on 24 hours a day. A lot of times, guys get a little bit nervous. Like in this particular case, the address I picked, there's trees there. But you know what? The person who's doing this measuring is actually the homeowner, so they know, right? So they know, oh, I've got lawn beneath those trees. And I'm just going really quick here. So they measure their lawn. They go ahead. They get a square footage. They hit go ahead. Let's continue. And it's going to bring them to an exact price quote for their particular property. Now, this is everything that we've built in using My Lawn Quote to kind of make it work easier. It's very simple to do. But so it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Somebody comes home from work. They work second shift or whatever. They want an estimate. They don't want to call and talk to somebody. They don't want to sit down and have coffee with you. They want an estimate, and they want it now. So what they do is they're able to measure their own property. They're able to get a specific estimate for whatever you want them to be looking at, and again, they can add to what they want. They hit all done, let's continue. It brings them to another screen that allows them to even go further. They can actually, again, you can do, prepaid discounts. You can do everything. It gives them options. They can say, I'm interested. They have questions. They want to get signed up. They can even actually prepay us at 2 o'clock in the morning. So my point here is that I agree so much with you that speed is huge. It makes the biggest difference. And what you said about getting somebody on just the program is huge too. You don't want to scare them with 100 services. You want to sell them your program, whether it's mowing, whether it's fertilization, and then you upsell them later. So speed will increase your closing rates astronomically. So in this case, we took the whole estimate process out of it altogether. We've got customers being able to perform their own estimates. On the other hand, we can use the same program when a customer calls in. Basically what we do is we get their information, we put that into the system, we get a measurement of their lawn, and then we email them that estimate instantly. And the goal is to not generate estimates. The goal is to generate sales. The goal is to be able to respond immediately to what that person wants with a price. And I think that's where the industry is going. But to be honest with you, very few companies are willing to adapt. It's that whole execution thing and being a little bit worried about how it works. And I think if you're able to implement a system like this, you guys are going to see your closing rates and your business skyrocket in a big way.
Hey, this is Dick. Tom, let me jump in real quick because I want to ask Jonathan a question. Jonathan, with a system like this and a system like yours where getting the email is so important, can you touch on lead nurturing a little bit, because I'm sure that's a big part of Service Autopilot?
So, Dick, do you mean in regards, can you give me an example of what you mean? I understand lead nurturing, but can you give me an example of how you're referring to it? Are you talking in terms of the process of following up once they become a lead, or what?
Well, the importance of keeping that database healthy.
Yeah.
And just because you don't close a deal today doesn't mean you're not going to close a deal next month.
Oh, yeah, no, that's so true. So you are. I mean, so there's a couple things in the database that are really important. One is that when that lead flows in, where are they going to come from? Are they going to come from this website initially? Do you have an estimate capture form on your website? Do you have a contact us form? Somewhere there's somebody taking a phone call. However that happens, that lead has to be captured. You've got to know at all times how many leads you have that are open. You've got to know when they became a lead, so that you know when your clients become a lead versus when they became a client. You need to know those types of pieces of information. So unless you're capturing this information in the system, and then unless you're actually logging a history, keeping up with the estimate you actually gave. That's why electronic estimates are so valuable, is even if you print them out, you've got a record. Handwritten doesn't seem to work. And then you've got to continue. You have to have a process internally where somebody follows up on the leads that haven't closed after a day or after 2 days, and more than one time. But even all those leads that somewhat go cold this season, they're all back on the table later this year when the company that they might have hired potentially disappoints them, or they're back on the table at the end of the year. So the idea that a lead is only a lead today, and if we don't close them now or in the next couple days, that marketing money was wasted is silly. These leads are potentially valuable to us for a couple years. And so part of nurturing the lead is following up by phone. That's part of making an impression that we care, we follow up, we're on top of our game. And it's also it's also about over time following up with possibly direct mail, following up with a letter, following up because you have the email address with some automated email marketing. And not from a salesy standpoint, but from a teaching, informative, educational standpoint, just so you stay top of mind in your client's mind. So I'm a huge believer in what they call autoresponders, where you stay in front of your client once a month or a couple times a month via email with something helpful and informative. That way the next time the the competing lawn care company forgets to close the gate for the second time and the dog gets out, you're the first company that comes to mind. So unless you have that database, unless you're looking at it, unless you're updating it, your marketing dollars they don't go as far, because unless you sell the lead in the moment, that marketing money was wasted. But reality is, when we spend money, just because we don't close the work today doesn't mean that marketing money isn't wasted. We've got a lead that we can keep going after for a couple years. And so the list, the management of it, it's critical.
Yeah, and I clicked on this example here. Whenever somebody does an estimate through that site, the way I demonstrated, it always gets tabulated and gets kept track of in this particular system with inbound and outbound quotes. And Dick, what you said is true. No doesn't always mean no. No usually means no, not right now. And your best potential customer is always somebody who you've been in touch with previously. It's absolutely important and vital that you maintain that list and you maintain all of the contact information as much as you possibly can so that you're able to sell it later on.
Right. And circling back around the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about how so much direct mail is wasted because you don't know when you're mailing to a street, are there 2 potential buyers on the street, or are there 4? But when you have somebody that called you and responded to your original marketing, they're a potential buyer. That list is probably full of, like 90% of that list is probably a potential buyer. So before you go do direct mail to just streets, the most effective direct mail you can do is going back to the list of people that never bought from you that you still would like to win their business. That's the first list you go back to in direct mail.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was part of that plan. You know, the previous customers, previous reject cancels, you've got to go back to them. So,
yep.
You know, Dick, I'm sure you're about to cut us off here because we're at about an hour, and I've got a lot of questions. I don't know if you guys can see the questions as they pop up, but there's a long list of them, and I'll encourage you guys that if you have any questions you want to ask before we wrap up, please do. But if you don't mind, I'll read a couple of them now, and maybe you know, Jonathan and I can answer them. So when we were talking about lists, lots of guys, and I keep saying guys, but lots of companies and guys and girls were asking about where do they get this list. So there are lots of list companies out there. Jonathan, I don't know if you work with one specifically, or Service Autopilot has a relationship with somebody, but there's plenty out there.
Yeah, we don't have a specific relationship. I tend to like a company called Zap Data for simple lists. They can get you a simple list. My preference is, and actually the future, but it's going to be a while, it's not this year, the future of Service Autopilot is to have a relationship. But what I do like to do, what I do recommend is there's all kinds of different printers, and if you get a printer that knows marketing, they will have relationships with list brokers, and you can work with them, and you can work with them closely. And if that printer's in your local market, they'll have a little understanding of the market when they're talking to the broker. So I like to use some local relationships for that stuff.
Yeah, and actually that goes to show that we weren't on the same page with that, because I didn't want to throw out anything that I recommend in case you had a specific relationship with somebody.
No, recommend away.
But Sales Genie, which is a great B2B source for leads, they also have a consumer database. Mostly everything spins off a company called InfoUSA, and they seem to be at the top of the food chain. Another great list or way to drill it down is to get new homeowners, and that was another thing on that source plan. But you know, a Google search will get you a long way. But we usually recommend Sales Genie to start with, and InfoUSA.
In some of the markets around the United States, the first company that has to know about new homeowners is the water company, utility, and some of the utility companies provide those lists for a fee or for free. For example, in my market, they provide it every Monday morning, and you don't even have to pay for it. So,
man, that's awesome. I didn't even know that. That's
yeah, if you just look around, it's not true everywhere, and then there's a lot of websites out there that will be the county and then CAD.org. Across the U.S., you'll find a lot of these, and there's ways that through some of those sites you can get lists of new people. It's all different all throughout the United States, but just kind of, if you're a little creative and look around in your market and do a little research, you can find some good lists, and sometimes they'll have the name, whereas with a lot of the cheap InfoUSA lists, not saying quality cheap, but inexpensive lists, a lot of times it's current resident. You may not actually always get the name, or you got to pay more to get it. Some of the local markets, you can get some of that for free if you go look at the utility companies. And if you have a company in your market that is kind of a welcome, they're in the business of welcoming new homeowners to the market, they're a great place to start and ask questions, because they have to buy that kind of data and then point you in the right place.
Yeah. And let me add there, never send something to somebody that says current resident or homeowner. You always want to have their name on it. It's what's called the mail moment, where somebody gets their mail and then stands next to the trash and throws stuff in there. Anytime and I'm speaking from my own experience, if something comes to me addressed to resident or homeowner, that thing's going in the trash right away. So it's worth it to make sure you get the homeowner's name for sure. A couple other questions here were in regards to that auto estimating program. Yes, you can put a disclaimer in there in regards to mismeasured lawns. And I want to throw something out there in regards to that. I would rather give up a little bit of measurement for volume any day. So I'd rather have 1,000 estimates that might be off a little bit than 100 that are perfect. But using that program, and we've built into the system, before anybody can purchase or before anybody can commit or pay us something, there is a disclaimer that basically says, we reserve the right to make any adjustments if we need to. And what a lot of companies have done is kind of made it humorous, saying, don't try to misrepresent your lawn. We can, we won't accept every single quote. If you're trying to get away with something, you can't. But it's basically a terms of service that you put in there that somebody has to agree to so you can change it. But I think volume is important. Man, I got a ton of questions here, and we're over an hour. Is there anything anybody else wants to ask before we wrap up? I'm trying to scroll through all the questions.
Well, Tom, while you're looking through the questions, let me just jump in. We're going to be doing this webinar every month. We're going to have a different topic. In April, we're going to be doing one on branding and upselling. So be on the lookout in your email for that link. And would like to see you back on here. Jonathan and Tom are wealth of knowledge, years in the industry, and at the top of their game. So branding and upselling should be a good one.
Yeah, and you know what, guys, we're over our time, so I'm not going to go through any more of these questions. I will at least offer that if anybody has anything that they want to throw at me, they're more than welcome to contact me via email or telephone. T. Kelly at Natural Tech Inc. is my email. You can find the phone number, just by looking at Be Safe Lawns. And I'm happy to speak to anybody about anything, anytime, and would be glad to help you out. Jonathan, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Speak to being happy to answer questions? Is that what you were asking? I'm happy to answer questions.
You want to throw your home phone number out there.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Actually, I have this site called Lawn Care Millionaire, where over the years I've probably answered 1,500 questions by email, and I've answered hundreds of questions by video. My email address there, that's a good one, and I will preface that I check that email every couple days. That email address is Jonathan, JONATHAN, at lawncaremillionaire.com. So it's just a site set up that there's a whole lot of questions that have been answered out there if you find it interesting. And if you shoot me an email there, I'm happy to answer the question.
All right, everyone. Well, appreciate you jumping on today, Tom and Jonathan. I appreciate you guys jumping on. It was a great call, a lot of good information out there. And that's it. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.